everyone. My name is Marina. I'm an addict. It is really, really good to be here. I've missed this meeting for the past couple of weeks, and I was really missing it, and I was really craving it. Last Friday, it was really sad that I wasn't able to come, and I really felt just so comfortable in this room and in this meeting with this committee, and it's actually really nice to have a kind of smaller meeting tonight. It's good to know that the convention is being well attended, and I think there's been times where this meeting has had a lot of people. It's like all the seats have been filled up. You have to get more chairs. I'm like, oh wow, there's so many people, but it feels like just a little bit slower, a bit calmer, just kind of different with there being like a smaller handful of people. And I think because I wasn't able to come to this meeting for a couple of weeks, I did a meeting on Wednesday recently, and every meeting I feel like every meeting I go to, not just whether it's a Wednesday or a Friday or whatever, but every time I go to a different meeting, I feel like I get kind of topped up in a different way, like there's always a few kind of snippets of what people share, or even things in the literature that just really kind of stay with me a little bit differently. I can never really predict what those things will be that kind of stick on me, you know what I mean? Like things that kind of like stay on me. But I've always had really good stuff kind of stay with me from this meeting. I've had other home groups before, and I've done my commitment of a year, sometimes not, sometimes it's been cut short a little bit. And then for some reason I don't know, there's sometimes like a little point where I sort of fall out of love with a certain home group. I'm really lucky that that hasn't happened. It hasn't happened yet, at least. It hasn't happened with this home group. I've always, like I say, I really, really do love it here. Thank you for coming. Thank you for asking me to come to do a chair to celebrate my 4 years clean. And it just feels, thank you. It just feels so. It doesn't really feel real. It feels very, very surreal. I just can't believe it's been that long. How's that adding up? 2021, it's 2025. I guess there's been 4 years in between, And so whenever I have a clean time birthday, it does always take me back to when I was a newcomer, of course, to before I got in, before I got clean. I'll kind of, give a little sense of what that was like. So on this day, 4 years ago, I was using in a treatment centre. Just really not fun at all. I thought it was a successful use up, because I didn't get caught. And I kept it a secret for quite a while. It was only kind of after quite a few months, 3 or 4 months maybe after it happened, that I actually went back to the treatment centre and told them that, basically I kind of thought I'd found a little loophole. As always, I was very scheming in my using. That's the word my sponsor has used. A lot of scheming, a lot of manipulating, a lot of, I got away with it, and that kind of thing. A lot of hiding, that was really what it was about. It was really about hiding my using, hiding myself, really. So I was using in a treatment centre. So basically what happened, I'm going to have to rewind a little bit further. I was kind of being detoxed / quarantined / locked up in my old bedroom of my parents' house, and they were like, you just can't get out of this room, because every time you do, you pick up, we're terrified, we don't know what to do. So I just couldn't really go out on my own. I couldn't leave the house unsupervised. And so of course I then found a way around that. I was ordering drugs off the dark web and getting them delivered into the house. And then I went into a treatment centre And I was there for a week, 10 days, maybe. And my family were going to come to visit me, which was allowed. And they said, oh look, we've got this little letter package for you in the post. And I was like, yeah, bring that. And I was like, oh thanks, yeah. And they didn't know. And I think when they did, they gave me some extra things that I needed, like, I don't know, a charger or an extra bit of clothes or things like that I hadn't packed, and obviously they brought that with them. And I think as soon as that was in my hands, I was just like, I just felt compelled to use. Like, I couldn't, at this point in my recovery, I wasn't in NA. I think I'd done one online meeting. I didn't have a sponsor, I was definitely not working the steps. I did not have any concept of a higher power or any kind of spiritual connection. I was really just white-knuckling it, and basically there was an opportunity for me to use, and I took it, And I think the reason why I say that is because, to be fair, I had 2 weeks clean before I had that use up. And to be fair, I thought that was a long time, and I thought I deserved it, I thought I'd earned it. And that was kind of how my attempts at sobriety would usually go. They would be like, just get like a sort of personal best, like I say, white knuckle it. And then there'd always be this, I just can't do it anymore. And I'd push what I call the fuck it button. And everyone has their own concept of a fuck it button, a little mental button where we're like, right, that button's been pushed now. And that was essentially my last use, was when I pushed that button. And it was on a weekend in the treatment centre. There wasn't any kind of therapeutic groups or programs scheduled, anything like that. We were kind of just left to our own devices and meant to just relax for the weekend. And I found that really hard. I find it really hard to do nothing. I find it really hard to just... When people say, they're just going to relax and do nothing, I'm like, what does that really mean? Like, how do people even do that? And boredom was a very triggering emotion for me. And it's still, I wouldn't say it's a triggering emotion now, but it's still quite a difficult state for me to be in. For me to do nothing, I really struggle with that kind of stillness and silence and nothingness. It just does not... still I kind of have like a bit of an aversion towards it. And then I guess the flip side of that is that I can be very, very hard on myself, that I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough for my recovery. I'm not doing enough for my physical fitness. I'm not doing enough in my career. I'm not doing enough in other, personal development areas. I'm not doing enough as a family member. Like, there's so many areas where I can always tell myself I'm not doing enough. And I think boredom is just the sort of, it brings that stuff up. So, yeah, like I said, some of my earliest meetings were online. I got clean in 2021, so online meetings were very much, very well developed, obviously, at that point, thanks to COVID. And it was only after I left this first treatment centre where I was kind of out, and I was somewhere where you still get drug tested, but you still had the kind of freedom to be able to go out and do things, as well as some kind of having some therapeutic groups take place as well. And that's when I rediscovered in-person meetings, basically. And my first commitment was a setter opera. And I did it in typical sort of Marina fashion, did it for a little bit, and then just sort of faded away, and I didn't really hand it in, I didn't really tell anyone. I didn't really know how to. It was a bit awkward because I wasn't added into the WhatsApp group, and I wasn't really doing an official position. I just had these little ways of just saying, yeah, I'm just gonna sort of turn a blind eye to that, and not really own it. And I think, the reason why I say that is because I guess in my recovery now, I think what recovery has taught me is I don't have to sort of run away for these things. can leave these things, but I can always present it. There's always a way for me to say what's happening. I don't have to just like hide and just saying, oh, hopefully they won't notice. And you know, I have handed in commitments in, of course, now, and I know that there's a wrong way to do it, and I think it just took a bit of trial and error, because the first way I did it, I wasn't really doing it. I wasn't going about it the right way. And now when I do it, it's like there's a nice feeling, you know. There's some closure. People thank me, and it leaves, you know, it ends in a positive way. And I think endings are something that I just found a bit complicated and I would just kind of avoid. And now I can do it in a completely different way, you know, thanks to recovery. I mean, there's just so many things, thanks to my recovery, that I can do in a way that is just completely, completely what I didn't think was possible for me. You know, I remember like seeing people do things in a certain way. I'm like, oh, how do they make that look so easy? How do they just do that? Why can't I do that? You know? And I whenever I kind of think about when I was sort of in my teenage years, there was a lot of compare and despair. And there was a lot of this sort of feeling that, you know, everyone else was given this sort of like book of like, this is how you handle life. You know, everyone else knew what they were doing, and I just wasn't. I just didn't know what I was doing. I remember feeling like quite fundamentally lost, basically, just in the world, and just not knowing how to navigate anything. And I think that's kind of why I turned to drugs, was because it was a way for me to sort of shut myself out from the world. You know, it was a way to sort of kind of shut off the world and, you know, shut off myself. Like, I was just sort of sick of everything, sick of myself, and I just wanted to be able to I wanted that disconnection. I wanted to be able to disconnect from everything. And that's what I thought was the only way I was really going to be able to handle it. Was just, yeah, like I say, have this kind of, I remember feeling like that, like everything was just going so fast and quite overwhelming, and so much I just wasn't really able to process, like a lot of emotional pain that I just wasn't really able to process. And I just remember thinking, God, I wish I could have this, like, this stop button that I could just push. And drugs it gave me that button that I could just put a stop, you know. It gave me that sense of relief, or at least I thought it did, because it didn't. In reality, it gave me so much more stress than it was ever worth, so much more pain than I thought it alleviated. And of course, you know, where it ended up was just really, really grim and really awful, and just really destructive. You know, at the end of my using, my whole life revolved all around drugs. You know, drugs paraphernalia, drug money, drug dealers, dark web stuff, like just all of it was about around drugs. And I don't really think I didn't have any interest, you know, in other things at that point. And, you know, I think a lot of people, when they talk about their sort of arc of how their using sort of developed, they're like, oh yeah, it started off okay, it started off kind of fun. And I think for me, I never really had that phase. I don't think I really even had the fun phase, to be honest. I think I kind of convinced myself at one point, like, oh yeah, this is kind of fun. But actually, when I look back on it, it was just sad. Like, it was just really sad. And I think I was just trying to fool myself that I was having fun, but I don't think I even really was. I completely skipped the fun phase. And when I think about my using, even when at the time what I thought was fun, yeah, I just feel like deeply sad by it. Yeah, because like I said, I know what it was I was doing. I know I was feeling complete dis-ease with myself, and complete dis-ease with, you know, people, just situations, everything, the past, just dread about the future, just all kinds of stuff. Like, I was not at peace, I was not at ease with myself. So, yeah. I have no idea what is about to come out of my mouth in this whole chat. So yeah, I started doing meetings in person, and that's where I really felt the sort of the magic. As cheesy as that sounds, that's where I really felt the wow. Like people get clean. Like they actually can get all these key shapes. Like whoa, people can go up for like years. Like I just did not believe it whatsoever. I just thought there is no way these people can have 5+ years. Like this, just whoa. I was just in awe. And truth be told, I didn't actually believe it. I didn't sincerely believe it. I thought maybe they have. Maybe they just say that. Who knows? Like I was that skeptical about it all. And I remember thinking anyone with a year plus was like an old-timer. I was like, whoa, they've been doing this a whole year, wow. And don't get me wrong, like people who get clean for a whole year, like, well done, like, huge amount of credit is due there. And I remember thinking after a year, surely at that point you must be cured. Surely at that point you must be totally sorted out. All these issues that you've had, that 1 year, I was so naive, and I kind of thought, well, if someone has 2 years, there's no way they would go back to using, and obviously, that's just what I knew, basically, that's just what I thought, I should say, from my first kind of week or so of doing NA meetings, and obviously from all the meetings that I've done, from all the stories that I've heard from other people, and all the messages that I've heard, it's really not like that, people can use at any point in time, and we are never cured, that scar, that's how I think of it, there's a kind of scar of our addiction that doesn't really go away, like it is part of us, and I kind of struggle to accept that, in my using, I think I had this sort of basically a sort of delusional belief that I was invincible. I just thought, I'm taking really dangerous amounts of really dangerous substances, and I'm somehow not dead. That was how low I set the bar for doing okay. I was like, well, I'm alive. Like that was how low I set the bar. And I think actually, if I'm honest, I think in my early recovery, I kind of had this similar belief around, not invincible. That's a bit. It's a bit extreme of a phrase, but I remember thinking that there was a group of people who I got clean with in treatment, and I just remember having this sort of quite naive optimism, I would say, that we'll all stay clean, right? Like we'll be the ones that actually get it. I know relapse happens, but that's something that won't happen to us, right? Like, and obviously the people who I was in treatment with, some of them have relapsed. And that's just part of what addiction is, it is a relapsing problem, and it's something where, NA does not claim to like cure this. I just remember thinking, well, if people have NA, then they're fine, right? And I think, I guess because I'm doing a 4-year clean timeshare, when I think about the last year of my recovery, I think there's been a lot of life on life's terms that have really kind of slapped me across the face. And it's really kind of shown me that I do really struggle to accept life on life's terms, and I thought that by being in recovery, because I gave up drugs and alcohol, that life would somehow just go easy on me. I know, I'm like, come on, I've already given up drugs and alcohol, like what other challenge could there possibly be in store for me? Like I've done the hardest thing possible now, like just give me a break, like just make sure the next few years kind of go like be in my corner here, big man in the sky or whatever. And of course that's not what happens, like we're not, I literally thought in recovery that, I had this pink cloud, as you can probably tell, and I thought this pink cloud would just be infinite, and there was just this road of pink cloud, and that's the road that, I just keep being able to go on. And if I'm honest, I think, it's partly because the first two to 3 years of my recovery were genuinely amazing. It kind of set my expectations up a little bit too high. And then in my 3rd year of recovery, I'm like, okay, you know, there is no, life still happens, you know, it can be really, you know, really stressful things, really upsetting things, really unfair things, really great things too, but, you know, there's going to be, you know, just the things that just happen in life still happen in recovery, and life does not go any easier on you because you're clean. What changes, obviously, is, you know, the only thing I really have control over is my reaction to those things. That's all I have control over. I don't have control over those things happening, those things not happening. I don't have control over everything being reliable, or people being reliable. I literally don't have any control over that. All I do have control over is how I react to those things, and my, you know, maintaining my sobriety, or clean time. But yeah, I think in my third year of recovery, you know, there was a lot of, like I say, a lot of life on life's terms, quite a bit of loss, quite a considerable sort of shifts in my recovery. And I was actually at the convention earlier today, and there was someone who was talking about, you know, how the snake has to shed its skin. And I kind of think my third year of recovery was that first layer of snakeskin that kind of had to shed off. Thank you, acknowledged. Is that time? What is that?
No, I thought we did 20 and then 5.
Oh, okay. Got you, with you. So yeah, I think there was this sort of snakeskin, so to speak, that kind of grew over the first 3 years of my recovery that I think has had to kind of shed itself to kind of, you know, make way for like the new chapter. And so I'm really, really interested in what my fourth year of recovery has in store for me. I feel a little bit more prepared, I think. I definitely feel less naive. I definitely feel less complacent about my recovery. I think complacency, that's probably the word I was going for when I was saying like invincible. I think I was just a bit complacent. I just thought, well, as long as I've got an A, everything will just be sorted, right? And what I've learned is that complacency is the real, you know, is really the enemy of my recovery. So, yeah. And I think I've kind of noticed even before my recovery, every 3 years, like there's always been this kind of shift, and it's happened ever since 2012. Like 2012, 2015, 2018, 2021, I got cleaner now, 2024. So it does seem that definitely has been this kind of cycle or kind of pattern in my life around sort of 3-year markers. Good and bad, I will say, obviously, you know, it goes both ways. But there definitely does seem to be some kind of serendipity quality around these kind of like 3-year markers actually for me. But yeah, you know, I think for me getting clean was, for me it was about, like I say, being able to handle life, not having to run away, not having to hide, and really getting honest with myself. I think giving up drugs and alcohol was kind of the only, is still sort of the only way I really know of like how to really get honest with yourself fast. And now it's not about getting honest with myself in terms of getting honest about my drug using. Now it's about getting honest about basically what led to the drug using, you know, the behaviours, the thinking, the sort of catastrophizing, the perfectionism, you know, all those kinds of things. It's like really getting honest about those things, and I can get honest with them now, and I can't fully accept them because I don't like them, but I can acknowledge them with a lot more ease and with a lot more tools, and I have somewhere to talk about them. You know, I don't feel stuck, I don't feel like paralysed by my flaws, basically, or character defects, or whatever word people want to use for those things. Yeah. And I think in recovery as well, I think what I'll end on actually in recovery is that I think one of the biggest gifts of recovery is that I now like myself. And that's something I really thought would genuinely never be possible. I literally used to think I will always hate myself. There will be things about me that I will always despise, no matter what. And the fact that now I'm actually comfortable with who I am, I actually like who I am. Like, I think that's the coolest thing in the world. Like, I think there's just, you just cannot put a number on that. You know, like I actually like who I am, which makes sense in some way, because before, when I was inactive, in my active addiction, I was not living true to my values. Like, no wonder I didn't like who I was. I was doing things that that was, like I say, like, it was really conflicting with my values. You know, I was manipulating, I was basically stealing, I was being very dishonest, acknowledged. But now I don't have to live that way anymore. And I think that's what being in NA has really shown me, is that, you know, by hearing other people recover and go through all these processes of, it's not just change, you know, it's complete transformation. You know, everyone in NA has been an inspiration to me in some way or another, and I just think being in NA is a place where we kind of do inspire each other and empower each other, and I just think it's a beautiful process, which I'm so lucky to have found. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.